What a wonderful tune to play. You'll Never Walk Alone, written by Richard Rodgers, Oscar Hammerstein, for the musical, the Broadway hit Carousel in the 1950s, but which was taken up by the Liverpool Football Club as their anthem, which is a stirring sight to hear them all singing that, and has been a very, very wonderful tribute for John to hear. When I was asked to say a few words at John's funeral today, I was highly privileged and indeed honoured to do so, and most touched. There's so many things about John's life that if I wasn't careful, I was very frightened of starting to go off into all sorts of directions and all sorts of byways and start rambling on and start joining phrases with the great and ums and plenty of and ums. So I hope you'll excuse me if I've written down what I feel about John and my thoughts and tribute to John. Today, we come together to say goodbye to a beloved colleague, a dear friend, and a loving family member, John Duffy. We are here to celebrate, honour, and reflect on his wonderful full life and say thank you, John, for allowing us to be a part of your life. As we reflect on John's life, let it be a joyous day, one of gratitude and thanks, and a day of celebration for a life which touched us all. I don't know what to give a series of chronological achievements of John's professional life, as that is on the record for all to see. But rather, I want to dwell on the character of John, his personality, and what he was as a human being. John had many gifts and talents: musical, diplomatic, an understanding of people, a warmth of character, and an intensity for the richness of life. He delighted in always meeting fresh challenges and to actively search for new horizons, so he could fully grow as a character and experience the full essence and pulse of living. He cared about people, was protective, generous, and sensitive in giving of himself with others through understanding, friendship, and love. John was a larger-than-life character with a tremendous personality. His presence was vibrant and ever colourful, with a shock of white hair, quick wit, and humorous sentence construction, all delivered with a gentle smile in that ever-slight Liverpudlian accent. I first met John over 55 years ago in the London Symphony Orchestra when we shared a desk in the bass section. After our initial meeting, where I struggled to understand John with his Liverpudlian accent and he trying to understand me with my New Zealand accent, we found a common bonding in that our humour and outlook on life was the same, which was based on human foibles, a sense of the ridiculous, and the irony of everyday life. That I remember so well. I have no recollection of what we were playing, but sitting next to John at work was an education in life and survival in itself, which was to last me a lifetime. John, as a personnel manager in the musical world, was able to see so quickly the real issues and truths behind the myths of artistic life, often so clouded in prima donna tantrums, unreasonable demands, and the massaging of celebrity egos. His gift in being able to see what needed to be done and what was bluster was legendary. John's efficiency and competence in organising and managing people became a benchmark for those that followed him in their professional lives. Many people could do that, but John had that extra grace and ability to do so with humour and leadership by shepherding and steering people towards doing what they did not always want to do. He was able to coax sometimes difficult players through the door and lead them gently by the hand towards getting them to not only agree to what they opposed so vigorously at the beginning, but then to convince them that that was what they wanted to do all along in the first place. What a gift, what an art. He had an uncannily wonderful memory. He remembered players' wives and their children's names, where and when they were going on holiday, and would gently remind them in the car park what time their next engagement would be on their return. All booked and recorded on the back of an envelope, well before the initials IT were ever invented. Everyone had a bespoke service from John. John's energy was enormous. He was a pace setter, physically as well as professionally. Until a year ago, I was struggling to keep up with him walking down Kensington High Street, while his professional and visionary ideas were ones that I was only able to fully grasp a week after introduced them over yet another bottle of wine at a late night. John was an international man who delighted in living life on a world stage. He loved touring the globe as a musician in the LSO and later establishing himself as an orchestral manager in Pittsburgh, Miami, Kuala Lumpur, and Tokyo. These roles were one that his character and personality enabled him to explore and fulfill his human potential to the maximum. Intellectually, John was a great reader, loved the theatre, music, loved culture, art, travelling, loved Liverpool Football Club, loved composing limericks, wallowed in history and heritage, full of curiosity in his surroundings, and never taking society at full value. He was always questioning and asking with intellectual curiosity, why? He enjoyed mental sparring and would ruthlessly, and sometimes annoyingly, push you to fully explain your viewpoint or make you see an issue from another angle well into the early hours of the morning. John loved his family. On coming to stay with me on his many sojourns to London, I would ask him what his itinerary would be for the coming week. While there were the usual variety of visits and meetings to attend, it always included the one constant, a Duffy reunion. This was a standing item where the Duffy clan would meet in Liverpool and the strong bond of the family unit would be recharged. He loved these gatherings and they were always in the highlight of any visit to the UK. Many a restaurant in Liverpool did very well out of the Duffy reunions. I never had the courage to ask who paid the bill. He loved sitting there until 3 in the morning with his brother Bernard, analysing the lineup for the Liverpool match next Saturday. It is quite clear that Liverpool would have been well advised to listen to these two experts from the Wirral who had all the right answers for Liverpool in being able to claim yet another cup win. John's journey was one of dreams, great spectacular wins with only a few minor setbacks. He was a man of thought, conviction and commitment, and achieved a dignified and mature fulfillment with compassion and sensitivity towards others. Often that is difficult and a delicate path to tread, and while many may try, many trip and stumble. But to you, John, this was something that you balanced and achieved so well. Finally, I remember John saying often to me in his reflective, philosophical moments, I may not end up by being a rich man, but I have had an absolutely wonderful life. I think we would all agree with that. John, we are grateful to you for allowing us all to have been part of your life. We salute you. Thank you.
Jerry, thank you so much for the kind words. That was very nicely written, very true, and got right to the point, so thank you for that. I also want to thank everybody for coming today, either in person here, or as we know there's a camera up there, there's people watching all around the world. And I'd like to thank you all for coming either in person or virtually. John, JD, Uncle John, Mr. John, or for me, he was just Dad. He was a dad who taught me many things and provided valuable life lessons and introduced many pleasures of life that I enjoy to this day. Two of the most significant lessons he taught me was the value of work and money. And his motto, his personal motto, was happiness lies in work. And we used to have a laugh about that, but he was actually correct. Happiness lies in work and the value of having done a good job at work. The second important, or most important thing he taught me was the value of friendship. We see here today friends. Jerry, lovely words about Dad, lifelong friend, lifelong pal. You provided him many a bed when he needed it, back in London or elsewhere, and I'm sure you'll obviously miss his company going forward, as you will. I too have very good friends. Jason Bailey is here today, and Andy and Anna from Wales are here too. What we also see in this room is new friends that my father made with Mike and Sarah and Malcolm. Thank you for coming today. So even in lockdown Torquay, he was still making friends all the way through, as he had done the rest of his life. In the 18 months that I lived in Torquay, we had some great times together. Sorry, in the 18 months he lived in Torquay, he had some marvellous times and made marvellous friends. Most importantly, Dad and I became friends. And that's something I think is quite special, to actually move from the father-son relationship to be good and close friends, I think is very good. We spent many an evening in Kuala Lumpur with beers at Sid's pub or lunches at El Mason. Jerry, I know you were there as well sometimes, and they were all wonderful times. It was probably only during the last 15 years that I really understood what a great mentor and father he was to me. And I wish, as a younger man, as we all do, we listened more to our parents and learnt more from our parents. And it was only really in the last 15 years that I tuned in to what I could learn from him and how I could become a better person. He also taught me that literally across the horizon are some wonderful experiences and wonderful lessons to be learnt as well. I am, of course, most thankful for Dad introducing me to my wife, Samira, who can't be here today, but I know she's looking at the camera, and the flowers from Anna are a gift from Samira to Dad. Some of you will know that I was lucky to stay with Dad during the last weeks of his life and shared his apartment looking over Tor Bay. We would sit in the evening watching TV or chatting, and those are now fond memories. The good moments did not include watching the Reds, especially the season which they've just had. In the short time that we lived together here in Torquay, he had the opportunity to watch me at work, as it were. For many of us these days, that is staring endlessly into a laptop screen and doing emails and Zoom calls. After one of these long late night video calls, he commented, "You seem to know what you're talking about, son." Little did he know that I was making it all up as I went along. Dad was particularly interested in my progress on an exciting and quite large program with Japanese Airlines. He would listen to my detailing developments, and as ever, he had very useful insight in giving me advice on how to maybe deal with the Japanese culture and whatever. I used all of his advice, and I'm happy now to tell you, Dad, that we brought that one home together. Thanks, Dad, for everything you did for me over the years, and I look forward to future long lunches beyond the pearly gates in years to come. I love you and will miss you.
My earliest memories of Dad are being read bedtime stories. Looking back, I think as a busy young father with the musician's irregular schedule, he used the opportunity to do his own reading out loud. So instead of recalling Alice in Wonderland, I remember being read poetry, Coleridge's Rime of the Ancient Mariner, Oscar Wilde, The Ballad of Reading Gaol, The Listeners by Walter de la Mare. He even read extracts from Plato on Socrates, knowing that I didn't care what he read and just loved listening to him. I can't remember anything of these, but perhaps these early bedtime stories had an influence on me years later reading philosophy as part of my degree. It was then that I learned about the principles of the ancient Stoics, which Dad seemed to naturally embody. To strive to accept circumstances we are unable to change, and be in control of that which is within our gift to influence, how we respond. This is how Dad approached his illness from his diagnosis over 3 years ago. With grace, accepting that there was no cure, feeling fortunate that he had had a marvellous life, and choosing to cherish the positives that were still to be enjoyed. The kind tributes we have received from Dad's friends and orchestral colleagues fill me with pride, and illustrate it was not just my perception of Dad as someone for whom the glass was always half full. The word positive features much in the tributes, and the following are a few extracts. Such a positive person who must have brought happiness and fun to so many people's lives. Always a delight to see him, and he was always the happiest man in the room. Such a bursting with positive energy man, kind and always interested in engaging with life. This is from Tony, Dad's oldest friend from school days, and also a musician. In all the time I knew your Dad, I never once heard him say a bad thing about anyone. He was the fairest, minded person I ever knew, and one of the most forgiving in adversity. Keeping his own counsel, your father was wise and magnanimous in everything I knew him for, and I can say that no one could wish for a better friend in life. These are some of the tributes from LSO colleagues. I can't think of anyone who was so totally respected and totally loved at the same time. He enriched orchestral life with his humour and his real enjoyment of every aspect of it. Crises and triumphs passed almost without notice by the way he dealt with the two impostors just the same. Anyone who knew John from LSO days will have been stopped in their tracks with overflowing feels of warmth, gratitude, respect. He was certainly loved as well as respected by the players in the LSO, and not only did he do a brilliant job, but he was one of those rare people who could make people feel good, even if he was having to share bad news. He was a very positive life force and brought energy and a great sense of humour to everything he did. John's was certainly a life well lived. The phrase "a life well lived" crops up in many of the messages we've received. There were many chapters to Dad's life and many adventures. Recent ones, aged in his 80s, include travels with Gerald around New Zealand and Europe. And at the age of 82, Dad undertook a 2-week road trip around Cuba on his own, sometimes on non-tarmac deserted roads with no GPS or sat-nav available, no mobile phone reception, and, having chosen to stay in local Cuban B&Bs, crucially, no decent glass of Malbec at the end of some hair-raising days. Having moved back to England in October 2019, things calmed down on the adventures front, but Dad still hoped to be able to get back to Japan again, to reconnect with the people and lifestyle which he so loved. His health, as well as travel restrictions, meant that this could not happen, but Dad still enjoyed a life well lived. During the restrictions of lockdown last year, while he was highly shielding for 4 months, he again chose a positive approach and would text me to say, "Life is beautiful." He loved the sunshine and sitting on the balcony of his apartment overlooking the sea at Torquay, keeping in touch with his family in Liverpool, and close contacts and friends around the world. Following his beloved Liverpool Football Club, which he never missed a game if he could avoid it. Devouring code word puzzle books, which he invariably trounced me at when we compared completion times, and taking the opportunity to read a wide range of books, from historical biographies to the novels of his favourite author, Stefan Zweig. Dad really appreciated and looked forward to the doorstep visits from Sarah and Mike, who kindly brought him his groceries. After the first lockdown, Dad made the most of visiting and staying with my husband, Andy, and me at the home in rural Somerset, which we moved to last year, and which Dad loved and felt at home. I cherish the memories of sharing everyday life with Dad. Dad enjoying chats with Andy about music, anything and everything, and Dad making me feel like I had one master chef every time I cooked, with his appreciation of whatever produced, no matter how simple. The tributes also refer to Dad's respected organisation skills as an orchestral manager. Dad left his affairs all in order. However, he didn't leave any guidance or instructions or preferences about this, his final gig. It's not surprising, as he was low-key in many ways. However, he did comment to me once that he had been to a humanist funeral, from which he came away feeling that was an upholding experience. So these words are taken from a humanist ceremony. Let us go out into the world, glad that we have loved, free to weep for the one whom we have lost, free to comfort each other in our human frailty, empowered to love to the full and to affirm the hope of human existence. Thank you, my Dad.
Ladies and gentlemen,